wasn't forgotten by his country, because the United States of America does not ever leave our men and women in uniform behind.
He's going to be safely reunited with his family. He served the United States with honor and distinction.
I think he owes us, both the men that he left behind that night, the men and women who were involved in the search for him, and most importantly, Brett, the mothers of those soldiers that didn't come home this weekend. They deserve answers.
Well, the controversy continues over the trade, essentially, of 5 Gitmo detainees for Sgt Bowe Bergdahl. And now that controversy is heating up as more members of his unit in Afghanistan are piping up. Steve Hayes with the Weekly Standard talked to a number of different members of that unit, saying, quote, "He was not a hero. What he did was not honorable. He knowingly deserted and put thousands of people in danger. He was a deserter. There's no question in the minds of anyone in our platoon." Now, a spokesperson for the Bergdahl family and for the mayor of his hometown pushing back on all of this. Where does this stand? Let's bring in our panel. Here in New York, Jim Rutenberg, chief political correspondent for the New York Times Magazine, Dana Perino, co-host of The Five, and Rich Lowry, editor of the National Review. Okay, Jim, what about this overall? How it's playing, where it sits?
Well, you know, one of my favorite quotes I saw today was in this Rolling Stone piece that Michael Hastings wrote a while ago about this story before it broke. And you have the Obama administration saying it could be a huge win if Obama could bring him home during the campaign of 2012. Amazing that they thought that, because look at the firestorm that it's wrought.
Yeah. What red flags sit out for you?
A couple of things I think are important. One, I question the wisdom of having a Rose Garden ceremony with Bergdahl's family immediately upon, because one, the message that it sends to America, but also the message that it sends to the enemy. I think that America is right to ask for a lot of these questions to be answered. I don't think it is good enough for the White House on a Saturday to say, Rose Garden ceremony, guy's fine, stable condition, no problem here, moving on. I think that the Congress has a right to ask why they were not informed more, even though I agree that the president had the authority to do it. I think that Congress actually has a right to ask. And also, I do wonder about Susan Rice's wisdom of going out on the Sunday show, of which she has not had a great record, and saying, bald face, that Bergdahl served with honor and distinction, and without any qualification, because to me, in the Pentagon report of 2010, they actually say the opposite. So at least I think there should have been some qualification.
The reason they say, the administration says, that the president had the authority was because of a signing statement.
Yep.
And that obviously was an issue.
Yes, it kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, because signing statements, you know, got a front page real estate for a long time when it came to George W. Bush. And you know who led the charge against executive power when it came to the War Powers Act? Senators Clinton and Obama. Today, there's no Democrat to be found that's criticizing the president. I actually think that the president had the authority, but I do think that some congressional cooperation is not unreasonable.
Rich.
Well, it's just an astonishing trade. I mean, these aren't just Gitmo detainees. These are the 5 top Taliban guys we had. You know, five of these guys, they had ties to al-Qaeda. They're all top former military and security officials. 2 of them are wanted by the UN on war crime charges. And the idea that they're just going to sit there and Qatar the rest of their lives, even if they sit there for a year as they're supposed to, which I doubt very much, and not go back to the fight, I think is laughably absurd. So it turns out last week, between the president's announcement of a date certain for withdrawal and this thing, was a banner week for the Taliban.
Jim, obviously for this family, for this hometown, they're celebrating this. They're pushing back on all of this controversy. You know, what the upside for the administration and how they play it going forward?
I guess the upside is they brought one of our own home as the president tries to wind down the war. They still believe, you know, that bringing the war to a close is popular with a lot of Americans, and they got our last guy back. That said, I don't know. They're going to have to do some explaining. And, you know, some of the pushback you're hearing today is, well, maybe he'll be an intelligence asset. Maybe we've learned more about the Taliban through him, and they'll get more as they debrief him. But they have a lot more explaining to do to the extent that they can.
I mean, the guys on the ground, and we talked to a Special Forces commander in that area, didn't believe he was an intelligence asset unless he was really deep.
He might have been an intelligence liability. That's also true.
Let me ask you about this. You mentioned Susan Rice. and the not notifying Congress. Here's what she said about how the deal came together with Qatar. Take a listen.
We do have that confidence based on a detailed understanding with the government of Qatar, based on President Obama's personal communication with the Emir of Qatar on Tuesday when it looked like this possibility might be imminent. And those assurances relating to the movement, the activities, the monitoring of those detainees give us confidence that they cannot and in all likelihood will not pose a significant risk to the United States.
Now, she said the communication with the Emir of Qatar on Tuesday, when it looked like the possibility might be imminent, Tuesday. So Congress wasn't notified. It happened over the weekend. The Emir of Qatar, by the way, went to that West Point speech the president delivered on Friday.
So they seal the deal to release terrorists in the back room of a speech where the president's talking to soldiers who are training to go fight for the United States. The timeline to me, I think, is very suspicious. Now, and we have the previous President Bush, tried to get assurances from countries, too, that they were going to take Gitmo prisoners and make sure that they didn't go back to the battlefield. Well, we know that some of those decisions were wrong, because a lot of the recidivism for those Gitmo detainees turns out that they are more deadly after they've been there than before.
About 30% is the figure I see go back to the fight. But on this, the notification is clearly blatant disregard for the notification requirement. And you had Chuck Hagel on one of the shows Sunday saying, yes, there's a 30-day requirement for notification, and we notified Congress yesterday, which makes no sense. But the fact is there's no enforcement mechanism with this notification requirement. The administration maintains it's unconstitutional. And in the area of national security, you're always going to have this tension between the executive and the legislative branches. What makes it so stark in this case is it comes against the backdrop of such casual contempt the administration has shown for the law in so many other areas.
So why do it?
I have a prediction.
Why do it now?
I have a prediction. So President Obama comes into the office saying that he is going to close Gitmo. On the first day, he finds out, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought, and it sort of gets pushed to the back page. They get through the re-election effort, don't have to worry about it. I believe that what you saw over the weekend with these five, the dream team of the Taliban being released, that this pattern of releasing these guys is going to happen, and there will be no Gitmo prisoners at the end because they're going to try to close it that way.
You buy it?
Do I have anything Dana says? But I do want to say that I still think, and it's what I started out saying, that I'm not sure they anticipated the way this was going to be received. Their rollout was definitely not the way one would roll it out if one anticipated some pushback, some controversy. So maybe they did it because they thought it was going to be more celebrated, therefore Rose Garden announcement.
I'm with Dana. I think they do not really, in their heart of hearts, consider releasing these guys from Gitmo a downside of the deal. They consider it another benefit because ultimately they want to liquidate that place. Yep. And Susan Rice said on one of the shows, Gitmo is a detriment to our national security. And by that logic, the more people you let go from Gitmo, the safer we are.
Jim, Dana, Rich, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, a look at the economy with three of the biggest stars from the Fox Business Network.